Harihi Om. Narayanaaya Paripurna Gunarnavaya Vishwodaya Sthitilayo Niyatipradaya Jnanapradaya Vibudha Surasaukya Dukkha Satkaranaya Vitataya Namo Namaste Asidudara Gunavaridhira Prameya Narayana Paratama Paramatsa Ekaha Samshanta Samvidahilam Jatare Nidhaya Lakshmi Kujanta Ragata Swaratu Pichak Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutirayet Devam Narayanam Natva Sarvadosha Vivarjitam Paripurnam Gurun Shagitartham Vakshyami Leshatah Lakshmi Narayanam Natva Purna Bodha Gurunapi Kurma Shri Krishna Gita Bhashya Duktartha Sangraham. Hari Om. Good morning, everyone. A blessed Shaktida Dwadashi blessings to all. We today are looking at shloka number 45 of the second adhyaya. Let's quickly look at a couple of shlokas and perhaps we'll try to make sense of what exactly is the message coming across. This is the second round of talks coming from Bhagavan Sri Krishna. The first set of talk came as part of shloka number 2 and 3. And then Arjuna spoke a little more. And then he had a very specific question. The question, after a lot of other things about him being completely deluded and things like that, the primary question is, tell me one thing for certainty, what is good for me, right? Now, in that discourse, we will see where it goes. From shloka number 11 of the second adhyaya is where we consider to be the big chunk of Bhagavad-Gita to flow out. And in that entire message, the first 20 shlokas were predominantly do not cry. Now, this makes very much sense. Nobody can be given any message, nobody can be given any advice when they have lost their consciousness, even when a road accident is happening. I think in the local parlance also, in the local colloquial sense also, we tend to say, just check if the prajna is back to that person, right? So, if a person has undergone a massive heartbreak, an unexpected mental shock through an accident and things like that, the first thing, foremost thing that we always want to check is if the prajna is back. And that's the first thing we hear. Prajna avadancha bhashate. In shloka number 11, Ashocyan anvashochastvam. You are crying for things that don't deserve to be, given a cry. Like, don't cry. You're crying for something that doesn't deserve your cry. And you're behaving like prajna avada. You're talking away from the prajna. And prajna is prakashanena tat jnanam, right? So the one that enlightens us, keeps us aware, keeps us alive, keeps us active around, right? So prajna, the 20 shlokas, all various examples being quoted about how all of these things are temporal kind of experiences through the contact of the sense organs and the sense experiences, all the shita, ushna, sukha, dukkha, all the happinesses, the sorrows, the heat, the cold, all of these are momentary, only based upon the momentary contact of the sense organs with the sense experience, right? And also establishing that Atma, not taking the name, but calling the Atma, the Sharirina, the Dehinaha, the Dehi, the different names that Krishna says, the one who is dwelling inside the body, right? The core literal translation could be the one who is dwelling inside the body. He is eternal. So he establishes that context very well. But the 20 shlokas from shloka number 11 till shloka number 30 was all about do not cry, right? The message do not cry comes as clearly as it can get, at least 5 times, right? Do not cry, do not cry. And that's the first thing, that is about establishing the prajna. I think this is where we should appreciate the yoga shastra here, the step-by-step guide, right? So yoga, I think we need to remind ourselves that yoga primarily means upaya, the way out, right? Way out to livelihood is udyoga, way out to kind of finding the utilities, upayoga. So yoga in different ways, it's always the way out, right? When people say yoga chitta vriddhi nirodha, it's a communion between the Purusha Prakriti. It's all about upaya. It's not like the communion does exist without any effort, right? So there has to be a way out, and that way out, that path towards that communion is the yoga, which is basically finding the upaya. And when we look at Yoga Shastra, it's a step-by-step guide to achieve that way out, right? So the first and foremost, whenever we have Vishada, and this is not an ordinary Vishada, well-defined Vishada, it's called the Vishada Yoga. And I think we briefly spoke about that also. A couple of things. One is he knows he can really break down the elemental pieces of that Vishada. In the state of Vishada, Arjuna could clearly break down multiple different elemental stuff on dharma, on the physical condition, on the Varuna Sankara, multiple things, and then a little bit from the Shastra side also. And it perhaps takes a level of Bhagavan to really rebut everything. People like us would have rallied behind him. Oh, Arjuna, yes, we are with you. Let's give up this war, right? But it is so beautiful the way he expresses himself. Compare that with the shocha, the shoka of Duryodhana. Arjuna's shoka is so very well defined, and that perhaps is why it's called the Vishada Yoga. Right? Even in Vishada, there is a way out. In our corporate world, we tend to see that problem is not the end of it, right? If the problem is well defined, there is a nice charter, if there is a nice well defined problem statement, if there is a clear cut stakeholder buy-ins and things like that, it's an opportunity. Many people call it as an opportunity. Whenever there is an issue, a well defined issue, it's an opportunity to kind of fulfill what we are really setting out to do. Right? So this Vishada of Arjuna is perhaps one of those where it is very well defined. And in terms of resolving that, the first thing that came from Krishna is don't cry, whereby he's trying to re-establish the prajna. Whenever we have issues, be it in the corporate world, be it in the family circles, be it our own personal issues, first and foremost thing that we all need to work towards is get the prajna back. We can't be crying. I think that's the first message from Krishna. The second message, which is sloka number 31 to sloka number 40, it's about dharma charana, swadharma nirataha karma, right? So do the duty, do your duty. That's the second most important thing. And he establishes a couple of good reasons why. How the name gets spoiled if you don't adhere to the dharma. How it's papakara, it's aswargyakara. It doesn't take us anywhere higher if we give up the swadharma. And then how the great noble people of the society will mock us, when we give up the dharma, swadharma, right? Again, dharma has to be understood to be the swadharma, my duty, what is good for me, and what is it that I'm supposed to be doing, right? Simple example, simple definition could be for a swadharma, what is it that I'm supposed to do, and what is good for me, good for my family, good for my society, good for my country, good for my planet, good for my universe. I mean, the scope can keep on getting expanded, right? But good for me, right? So I assume the centrality of it whenever we say swadharma. So for 10 shlokas, he speaks about swadharma, and then he brings out the buddhi, buddhi yukta swadharma, right? So buddhi yukto jahati ha ube sukhadush. We will see all that. But buddhya yukto yaja partha karma bandham prahasyati is something that he mentions in somewhere around shloka number 39 around, and goes on to very clearly say, right? Shloka number 41 onward, it's very predominantly buddhi yukta yoga, right? Completely. Now, what is buddhi yukta yoga? We need to understand, see, within the antakaranas, when we broadly understand the antakaranas, now this is something that we all need to perhaps take a look at in any of the tattva darshanas or sankhya darshanas, right? So this is sankhya yoga. Sankhya is analysis, analytical. Many a times Sankhya is also associated with another term called the Sankhya Darshana, which is an analytical observation, where we observe what is happening within our own life. I mean, while things are happening around me, things are happening through me, I should also be able to take a step back, keep an arm's distance away from the middle of the noise, the chaos, and then be able to observe what's happening. Right? That is the Sankhya Darshana, right? All the different tattvas, understanding how the tattvas play with each other, understanding how the gunas play with each other. This is how the traditional Sanatana society had perhaps looked at getting the answer to life, universe, and everything, while being an observer, right? While being an observant, analytical person. Sankhya Darshana. Whenever we look at the Sankhya Darshana, I think we spoke about this, the various tattvas, right? The lower 20 tattvas, which is basically the Pancha Jnanendriya, Pancha Karmendriya, Pancha Mahabhuta, Pancha Tanmatra. These are the 20 lower tattvas. On top of that, immediately comes the Antakarana, right? Which is what is all of us are. Whenever we say I, it's simple to say I in English, but whenever we say I, at least in the Sanatana context, The I can mean one of the four. What are the four? The four is basically one is manas. My manas is I. My buddhi is also I. My ahankara is also I. And then my chitta is also I. Now, simplistically, right? I mean, you shouldn't make this mistake of giving all simplistic definition for everything. But for the paucity of time, if you have to really get a simplistic understanding of it, manas is basically something that will help the part of me which will help me understand what is nice, what is not so nice. Like the weather is warm, the picture is beautiful, the song is melodious, right? The food is tasty. Uh, these are experiences, and we really can't assign any tangible reason as to why we say what we say, right? The same water can be pleasant for somebody, the same water can be disastrous for somebody, right? Some people will have acrophobia, and some people just take the water like fish to the water, right? So there are different ways, but it's the manas. There is no absolute sense of this is the good thing or this is the wrong thing, right? Manas has its own experience, has its own way. Like for example, some people will find lazing around on the sofa as the best thing to happen. Some people will find that to be the absolute sham, like it's the worst thing to happen. Like manas is basically going with what is nice. And it is basically considered to be the sixth indriya. Many a times it's also considered to be either the sixth indriya when we look at the five jnanendriya, or it's supposed to be considered to be the 11th indriya when we consider both the five jnanendriyas and the five karmendriyas. Right? The manas is constantly being spoken of as the additional indriya. I think in Bhagavad-Gita also, before we started this Pratipadartha, we looked at the Purushottama Yoga, the 15th chapter, and there, in that also, there is one line there comes, right? So, manaha sasthani indriyani prakriti sani karshati. So, it gives us an indication that perhaps manas is the sixth indriya, right? So, Bhagavad-Gita also, manas, the definition of manas is, it is the one which is like a central processing unit for all the indriyas, the jnanendriyas, and trying to understand what is nice and what is so not so nice. So for some people, my voice could be very pleasing to hear. For some people, my voice is absolute cacophony. Some people call it as apaswara, right? So there are different ways in which the same thing can be interpreted by different people. Then comes the buddhi, right? Buddhi uh, is all about the discriminatory power that we all possess to understand what is right and what is not, what is good for me and what is not, right? Like for example, if I go near the fire, right? If I go closer to the fire, the manas might say, oh, it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. Like suddenly, some people will have a very cold feet, like absolutely cold feet. If you have a frozen feet, and suddenly you go near the fire, many of us wouldn't realize the amount of heat that we will be taking in from that fire, right? We might suddenly dip our entire hand into that fire. If it's all left to the manas, we might even burn the hand, right? Because the hand is frozen and there is a fire there. We might even put our hand into the fire because the feeling is nice. But the buddhi has to tell me that this fire is dangerous. It will burn your skin, right? So buddhi is always fueled with the knowledge. Like buddhi is something that is a discriminatory. What is right, what is not. In the morning, when I put the alarm, right? The alarm rings 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Okay, the alarm rings. Um, you know, I I wake up. Obviously, there is another antakarana, right? Chitta. It's awake. It's not sleeping anymore. It's awake now. But it's the manas which says, "Oh, the quilt is so nice. The weather is so cold. I need that warmth. The bed is still warm. I will retain that warmth a little more because it feels nice. There is a constant tussle happening between the manas and then the buddhi. Buddhi is like, no, no, no. You have to get up. If you don't get up now, your entire day is spoiled. The entire rhythm gets spoiled. So buddhi. So there is a constant tussle, right? So manas drags us to a side, and buddhi drags us to another side, right? And then there is another faculty, the antakarana, third antakarana called the ahankara. Ahankara will then start putting, see, ahankara is all about aham, right? Mama. The minute somebody calls me Bharata, if I turn my head, which means I have ahankara, I have that mahakara. It might be a harmless level of ahankara, the harmless amount of ahankara, but nonetheless, it is ahankara, right? Ahankara is about the faculty within me, the antakarana within me, which will decide what is mine, what is not, right? It's the vanity, it's the attachment, right? It takes me. So, and then the fourth one is the chitta. Now, simple sense about our ahankara to understand that is, and the same example of the alarm. Okay, I have a long day to go. The manas is like, no, 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 no. The warmth is so nicer on the bed. Just retain that warmth a little more. Buddhi is like, no, you have to get up. Ahankara says, why do you have to get up? Why do you have to do that? This is not just your duty. If it is about doing the puja, your brother can do. If it is about getting ready and going to the office, what's so great in going to the office? I mean, who are you, earning for? I mean, if it's about the joint family, your wife is also earning. Why are you slogging so much to get up at 4 in the morning? If it's about a commitment to the office, why are you supposed to be doing all of these things? Enduring this hardship of getting up so early in the morning. Your teammates can be doing. I mean, that entitlement, feeling of entitlement. Why me? Why not him? All of that. This is mine. All of this entitlement is primarily the faculty of the ahankara, right? So inside me, there is always a tussle happening. Ahankara drags me to one side, manas drags me to another side, buddhi drags me to another side, and there is this chitta, the pure atma, right, which is completely untainted from all this. But it is the one that is awake, and we are that. Eventually, we are that, and we have to keep the three other faculties for what they are worth. Right now, here he's talking about buddhi, right? Sloka number 41 onward, he spoke about buddhi. Now, one of the things about and buddhi is all about what is good for me, right? What is the right thing for me to do? It's a discrimination. Discrimination is a virtue. Unlike today's woke society, where discrimination is seen to be a wrong thing. On one side, when we say every creature is unique, right? Uh, then absolutely, the fact is that each one has differences. Like each one is different. When each one is unique, each one has a difference, and appreciating that difference is the discrimination. We can't say, "Oh, you are discriminating," right? In the society that we inherited, right? There were heated debates time after time. No love lost, but when it is about debate, like people were completely into it. Like Mandana Mishra to Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, like Trivikram Praditacharya to Madhvacharya. Any of the debates, no love lost, right? To today, we have this very weird way of understanding samanvaya, right? Samanvaya is understood to be very, very wrong. We have acquired this falsified virtue from the Western nation called the modesty, right? We want to be good to them for the sake of it, right? Not because it's the right thing to be, right? We want to be good to them because it's the weak manas. We are all now going down to the weak manas because it goes with the niceties, right? What sounds nice, the flowery words and things like that. Now, buddhi is all about the constant lookout, the discriminatory power to constantly look out for what is right, what is good for me, right? And me can be expanded slowly, steadily, right? Me is individually me. Me is my family me. Me is my country me, my society me, my world me, my universe me. It can keep on expanding. So as much as we want to expand the scope of me, it can also expand, right? So buddhi. Now here from sloka number 41, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. If you have put your buddhi in place, okay, if you have completely got Vyavasaya in the buddhi, like you have only one option, O Arjuna. That is where the entire story begins, right? This entire section from now till shloka number 54, where we conclude this section, right? From 41 to 54 is another section. So first he spoke about prajna, getting back the prajna. The key to getting back the prajna is don't cry, stop crying, right? Shloka number 11 to shloka number 30 is all about do not cry. Shloka number 31 to shloka number 40 is all about Swadharma, the importance of Swadharma and how one should take to the Swadharma. Shloka number 41 to 54, we are now in that section, right? We have to look at shloka number 45 now. In this section, we are talking about buddhi. Now, the message is once you are buddhi yukta, O Arjuna, you have only one path. See, today we have the society where, with a lot of fight and a lot of churn, we want some power, some political outfit. Now we think they are useless, right? We want to now dig another piece of ground for more water. We have dug the ground for 10 feet. The water appeared to have come, but some mud has come, right? Because there is a manthan happening. But we looked at the mud, oh, this is not good. I want to go to the next place and start digging. Now that is the avyavasaya buddhi, right? The one that Krishna is mentioning about. We will have plenty of options when we are not completely fixated. Once we don't have a proper, resolute, buddhi in place. Today we are blaming, oh, this guy is Maulana, he wants to appease everyone, he wants to get some Nobel Prize, blah, blah, blah. Multiple different things. We don't have the resolute way out, right? There is a Hitopadesha story, right? The person who keeps on digging little by little of land in multiple different places, we'll never end up getting the water, right? So uh, we will not have any further options if we have put our buddhi. It's the same thing that happens, right? Commonly, when people tend to find, angst within their religion, for example, and try to move out. I mean, trying to move out is not the solution. If you have some differences, you have to resolve it inside, right? If I have a problem with my parents, if I run out, a neighbor cannot tell me, "Oh, you have a problem with your father. Come home. I will give you shelter in my place." Right? That is avyavasaya buddhi. Like, the person taking the shelter has also got no buddhi in place. There are bound to be differences, and there are bound to be reconciliation. There are bound to be the forging way forward. Right? You can't keep cutting off ties and then move on to other ones. There we are creating endless amount of opportunities for ourselves. We don't really stick on. It can be applicable to our allegiance to, say, the political outfit, our religion, our job. We keep having problems after problems with the jobs. And there are people, I know people who want to have some fun, but their idea of fun is everything should come in the platter. No, I mean, if you go to one place, you have enough to enjoy there. But no, suddenly they find that this guy didn't offer the water on time. They get up and go. They have this issue with everything that appears to go wrong minutely. They keep on having issues after issues. The buddhi is not proper, right? So even when I travel from, say, Hyderabad to Bangalore on my way, I mean, I should know that I should travel from Hyderabad to Bangalore. I can't keep having more options coming up. Oh, I'll go to Yaganti on the way. I'll go to Kurnool on the way. I'll go to Mantralaya on the way. I can't keep having unless they are pre-planned, right? It can't be off the fly, right? So buddhi, right? This is all about vyavasayatmika buddhi. Ekeha. If you have that vyavasayatmika buddhi, oh Arjuna, you have only one option, which is that option: fight. Because this war did not happen overnight. There has been several attempts, the last ditch effort to prevent the war. And the final effort was to seek 5 small villages for each of those 5 brothers so that the war can be avoided. No, that couldn't happen. They have tried everything possible. So the buddhi, if you look at it from the buddhi point of view, oh Arjuna, this is the way out. And we are not sitting in Kurukshetra today. We've been camping for the last several days, right? And all along, this is not the first time this doubt has come. A few days ago, his brother, elder brother, Yudhishthira had this doubt: should we go to the war? Looking at the strength of both the parties, these guys could mobilize only 7 Akshohini Sainya. The other side could mobilize 11 Akshohini Sainya. In normal sense, it could be an almost suicidal kind of a walk, right? You are going into a bigger force, which means you will get subsumed, you'll get consumed in no time, right? It's the same Arjuna who instills the confidence back in Yudhishthira. No, 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 no. We will win. Okay, and he mentions this line back then, right? I mean, he speaks about him and Bhima being enough to kind of annihilate the entire 11 plus Akshohini Sainya there. But he also says Krishna, right? Yato Krishna Tato Jaya. We get to hear that for the first time through Arjuna's mouth, through Arjuna's words in the same Bhishma Parva. Right? So the same guy, he had the buddhi to even give the bodhana. So this entire section from 41 to 54, the central theme is buddhi yukta. Right? When we have the buddhi in place, we will see only one way forward. There are no two things that will come in front of us. Right? So in that sense, we spoke about a couple of things. One is the first shloka, the shloka number 41, where he says, Yavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hi anantacha buddhayo avyavasayina. Like, when you have avyavasayi buddhi, you will have ananta, endless amount of options opening up in front of you. But if you are a vyavasayatmika buddhi, if you are a resolute buddhi, you only have one thing to do. Okay, in this instance, fight, right? And then the next shloka, he says that yamimam pushpitam vacham, like Arjuna was getting swayed by the pitri tarpanas, the pitri karyas getting spoiled, right? In the first chapter, there are places where he says narake niyatam vasaha, lupta pindo takakriya, sankaro narakaya, kulagnanam kulasya. So he speaks about how this entire war is going to end up in a situation where the society will get corrupt, adharma will be dominant, and all the pitri karma will go for a toss, and because of which we will all be permanently relegated to naraka. Right now, Krishna initially he appears to speak as though he's cancelling the Veda. In two shlokas, shloka number 42 and 43, he says, whoever speaks these flowery words of the Veda, that these are the only things, they haven't really understood enough. Right? He says that. And then he also says, Vedas are not to be taken for the Kamatma, like for desires, for fulfilling your own desires. Now, this is very important for these people, especially the Pandavas, because one of the very longing desires for them is to perform the Ashwamedha Yaga. They want to perform the Ashwamedha Yaga to send their father, who had a very untimely, unnatural death. Right? Pandu had a very unfortunate death. They had a lot of longing to perform this Ashwamedha Yaga, and then so that he can be given the place in Indra's court, right? So Indra didn't have a place for him, according to them, right? So Krishna is actually shooting two, birds with the same arrow. One is that these things are unnecessary. Like if you follow the Vedic scriptures, the injectures, for your own personal benefit, like this is Bhogeshwarya Gatim Prati. You are just looking at a selfish need, right? And then he goes on to say, this Bhogeshwarya Prati, like whoever does this does activities for the sake of Bhogeshwarya, they will never achieve Samadhi state. Okay, because their intellect is completely abducted. Right? That is what we see in the shloka number 44. That is where we stopped it. Now, does this mean he is cancelling the Vedas? No. Right? He will explain why. We will see that a little later. Okay, he will explain. He's not cancelling Vedas, but what he is telling is, even when following the Vedas, like today, a lot of people tend to perform a lot of Shanti, Sandhi Shanti, a lot of homas we perform. And all the homams are prescribed through the Vedic teachings, right? One thing that the Purohit, whoever is getting these things done through us, one thing they constantly tell us is idam namama, Mahaganapate idam namama. We say that, right? It's not for me. But we tend to think that by performing this Ganahoma, I will be rid of these problems. I will get so and so rank. Okay, so some way that Kamatma is constantly dwelling in all of us, right? We do a lot of these events for the sake of some material benefit. But what Krishna is telling is the Veda activities are not for those Abhishta Phalas. Abhishta Phalas are there, but nobody can stand entitled to that Abhishta Phala that it has to materialize. So we will see what exactly Krishna is telling. So in shloka number 44, he says that Bhogaishwarya Prasaktanam Taya Apahrita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi Samadhau Apina Vidhiyati. Right? So even in Samadhi, that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi does not exist. I mean, that's a Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is Sama Buddhi. Samadhi is Sama Buddhi. Dhi is Buddhi. Right? So there is a double adjective, but basically a lot of times we tend to think that we can achieve the state of Samadhi. And Samadhi is not a destination. Right? We will see that later also. Even in Samadhi, if you are constantly going behind the Bhogaishwarya Prasakti, you will be lost. You will not attain Samadhi. That's what he says. And Samadhi is needed because Samabuddhitva is what will give us the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, through which we only have one thing to do. If we don't have the Samadhi, there are plenty of distractions that will take us away to different paths. Now again, contextually, this is the single most message that is coming to Arjuna, that stay Sthira Buddhi, stay Samabuddhi, do one thing at a time, don't do multiple things. Rameshji is here. Rameshji, do you have a quick interjection before we move on to shloka number 45? Shubhodaya?
No. 45 only.
45, perfect. Okay, shloka number 45, we'll quickly read. We have given the web link here. This is a beautiful web link. I won't say this is the best web link, but this is a beautiful web link for helping us to achieve whatever we want to achieve, a little bit of it, right? If you click on that, you will have 2-3 sections. We will quickly go through that. If you click on that web link, we go to shloka number 45 of the second chapter. Do we have that link? 1 minute.
Yes, Bhataji, this link will take you to 45 only.
Okay, we have the same link, shloka number 45. So when we click on that link, we have the shloka. Let's quickly read that out. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigунyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvastho Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. That's the shloka. When we come down, right, scroll down a little bit on the web page, we see the Padacheda. When we see the Padacheda, it basically splits all the words, right, into its individual components. Pratipada. Right? So the Padacheda gives me Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvaha Nitya Sattvastaha Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Right? This is the breakdown of all the words. When these words came together through sandhis and things like that, they sounded like how the shloka sounded. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. So when we reassemble these words, the broken down words, into a proper prose order, right, that is given in the Anvaya, the section slightly above that. Anvaya, it reads like this. Hey Arjuna, Vedaha Traigunya Vishayaha Nistraigunya Nirdvandva Nitya Sattvastaha Niryoga Kshemaha Atmavan Bhava. This is how it sounds, right? What does it mean? Most of us don't know how to parse Samskrita, right? So for that we need to click on top. We have another link called the dictionary. When we click on that link called the dictionary, against each of the word in the prose order, in the Anvaya format, we get to see the English meaning as a Hey Arjuna, O Arjuna, Vedaha Traigunya Vishayaha. The Vedas are restricted to the Trigunatmaka Prapancha, right? Having the action of the three gunas. Traigunya Vishayaha. They are Vedaha, they are filled with the Trigunatmaka Vishaya. Tvam, like Tvam is understood. You, Nistraigunya Bhava. Okay, you be free from these Gunatmaka bondage. Nistraigunya Bhava. Nirdvandva Bhava. Like, be rid of all the confusions. Nitya Sattvastaha Bhava. Constantly work towards achieving the Sattva. Sattva is one of the gunas, but it's also the true being, right? In this website it says true being, right? Also, true being is basically whatever is the Paramatma Tattva is, right? Closely being that. And Niryoga Kshema, don't look for personal well-being without getting or having. Niryoga Kshema, that without a desire for your Yoga Kshema, right? Don't think too much about your own Yoga Kshema. And Atmavan Bhava, okay, possessed of the self. But Atmavan, see, Atma can be understood in multiple different ways. In a simplistic sense, Atma can be Atma, also Paramatma, right? Atmavan Bhava. Okay, be possessed in the self or be possessed in the Bhagavan. Be possessed in the Bhagavad Rupa. Because this guy is a believer. Arjuna, he believes in the Paramatma Tattva. Right? So that is where, he says very clearly, Nitya Sattvastaha Atmavan Bhava. Basically, constantly work towards being in the path of the Bhagavan. What does this interpret to? When we click on the shloka link on the top, the link called the shloka, come down a little bit, we get to see Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. It says, Hey Arjuna, the action of the three gunas is the subject matter of the Vedas. But you become free from the three gunas. O Arjuna, without the dualities, ever based in the true being, without getting or having possessed of the self, right? You be free from them. This is important to keep ourselves insulated from getting swayed away in the path of Buddhi Yukta, right? Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, Samadhi, Stitadhi, Stira Buddhi, okay, or whatever we want to call it, right? It's all about getting the Buddhi intact. If I have to get up at 4 o'clock, I get up at 4 o'clock. No matter how sharply the weather turns to the extreme, I get up at 4. No matter how warm the blanket is at 4, I get up at 4. No matter how much the alarm keeps ringing, I will not get flustered because I know I have to get up. So that's the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. What are the things that he is trying to tell? You stay away from the Trigunatmaka bondage, right? You stay Nistraigunyo Bhava, because all the Vedas, whatever they tell you, they are primarily telling you to, because this is again reference to Yamima Pushpitam Vacham, Shloka number 42, right? All the flowery words of the Veda, when you look at them from a literal sense, right? They are all Trigunatmaka. That, I'll get unlimited life, I get so much of riches, all of these things, right? In Veda, whenever we say, we get to see that, the way things are being expressed, that we will get endless amount of riches, and we will get endless amount of happiness through the material references. We will see plenty of material references in the Vedic, those sayings, right? Those lines, the riks and the mantras. We get to see a lot of reference to the material world, right? So what Krishna is telling is all these Vedic mantras, Vedic scriptures they have a very strong message around the material world, which is the triguna. When the minute we say prakriti, the minute we say nature, the minute we say the material world, the trigunas are inseparable from them. What are the three gunas? The rajoguna, sattva guna, tamoguna, right? The three gunas, right? Rajoguna is the quintessential thing of life. It's all about energy, passion. The more I do, the more I get. All this kind of in the management world today, there's a very great philosophy like the management by objectives, right? It's very properly defined rajoguna, right? I do this, I get that. I sow the seed, I pour the water, I get the tree. Like, you do this, you get that. Okay, cause and effect, energy, passion. All of this is very strongly rajoguna, right? And many homas, many yajnas that we perform through the Vedic scriptures also, like, do the pinda udaka kriyas, then your pitras will be in swarga. Like, it's proper rajoguna, right? Then there is sattva guna. Sattva guna is basically the happiness is within, right? The happiness is always within. You don't have to seek elsewhere. Like the example I was quoting earlier, that people keep on moving from hotel to hotel to hotel, only to see issues after issues after issues. A good person, a person with sattva guna, will find happiness anyway, right? He doesn't need to go to this particular movie or that particular movie, or go to this holiday destination or that holiday destination. They will find happiness anyway, right? That's where we see more and more sattva guna people visiting temples, right? Because that's as good as a holiday in Bora Bora Islands or things like that. For them, it doesn't really make a difference, right? They are just happy naturally. They have the sattva guna naturally within them, right? So the one that seeks happiness, not in a very very cosmetic sense, but where happiness is already there, need to be unlocked, right? That's a sattva guna. People who are more towards knowledge, people who are naturally inclined towards gaining more and more knowledge, like this kind of a talk, Bhagavad-Gita, as much as it's the popularity of it, not many people can be part of this discussion, right? There are certain wavelength frequencies that need to match for a person to get into the circle of these kind of discussion. Not to say that this is the best knowledge that is there. Okay, I mean, some of us do speak like that, but for others it might sound like a very very cultish statement that we make, right? When we say this is the best message on the planet and things like that. But there is a certain inclination that a person needs to possess to even get to this kind of a knowledge. Like, so the guna that naturally takes us towards happiness, towards knowledge, towards enlightenment, towards brightness, like, even in the dark, we tend to see the light, right? So there are many people who can get up at 4 in the morning, go to the nadi, take bath. They don't really see the darkness. They see a lot of brightness there, right? They see the path, nicely opening up for them. So that's all sattva guna. And then there is tamo guna, which is all about ignorance and things like that, right? Ignorance, lethargy, procrastination. All of this is coming from the guna called the tamo guna, tamas, anda tamas, right? Darkness. Uh, Now, he says all the Vedic scriptures are talking about the three guna associated matter. You come out of this, bondage, being bound by the three gunas, right? You come out of this, nistray gunya bhava. Now, what is nistray gunya? What is the state of nistray gunya? I think Arjuna has the same question. We will see that in chapter 14. But for now, we will say Nitya Sattvastha Bhava. Constantly go towards Sattva. Constantly seek knowledge. Constantly seek happiness within. I mean, happiness is not that I go to Andaman and then I get happiness. I go to Goa, I get happiness, right? I go to Leh, Ladakh, I get happiness. That's again a tamoguna, right? I do, or at best be rajoguna, right? Sattva is basically happiness is within, right? So, be sattva guna. And that is where we tend to unlock the Paramatma. If we can all see Paramatma inside, we can also see the Atmana, like an Atmavan, like, the Sattva guna inside all of us. Okay, Bhavarjuna, Nirdvandvaha, be rid of all the confusions. Okay, Niryogaksemaha, don't be bothered so much about your own well-being, because he is asking constantly, tell me what is good for me, right? Because he is going by the momentary experiences of his bodily condition. Like, my limbs are freezing, my face is drying, my skin is burning. All of these things, just like I explained little while ago, he explained all of these are momentary. All these things are temporal experiences that you're experiencing, right? So get rid of these confusions, stay constantly in the sattva and forget about your yoga kshema for time being. Be within your own self, like, Atmavan. That's what he says. Let's quickly move on to the next shloka. If there are any interjections, Ramesh ji, you are on the stage, so you can always jump in and
Yeah.
offer your thoughts.
Yeah.
You go on now.
I had an observation only in that yoga kshema, that see these terms yoga and kshema. Basically, these two terms are yoga and defense, which involves the activities of all beings in the world in their own sense. Everybody's activity is triggered, I think, by these two things. What I understand is yoga is to gain what we don't have or what is not there, and defense is the one to protect what has been gained. Here, the swartha, the selfishness, is it should be, and it is what we do is motivated by the selfish ambition. So we are protected against selfish earnings. Now, when we are saying this, I think it should not be misunderstood. For example, we have our borders and our soldiers and all that, they are protecting it. But that cannot be considered as swartha because it is dharma there. In the Raja Dharma, what you have to do is you have to protect your motherland or you have to protect your country, and that cannot be termed as swartha. So these things should not be misinterpreted by those who have not really understood the actual broadness of this particular thing. So that is what I thought I will bring forward this thing.
Brilliant. I think that's a beautiful distinction being drawn there. Yoga Kshema, very beautiful word being used by Maharshi Vyasa in expressing this thought, and also beautifully explained Ramesh Mohodaya. Yoga is about acquiring something that we don't have, and Kshema is about retaining what we already have, protecting the one that we already possess, and yoga is about possessing something new. Very beautiful. And you get rid of both thoughts. You get rid of both yoga and kshema. There is also a possible conflict that might come when in the same line he says, be, nistray gunya, like, get rid of all the three gunatmaka urge in you. And then in the same breath he says, nitya sattva bhava, constantly go for sattva. Why can't sattva, why is now sattva not part of the triguna, right? So that question also comes, but maybe we will keep this answer for a later time. There is the only thing I can say is sattva is necessary for us to get rid of all the three gunas. That's the only thing that I can say. But we will see the answers later. Some of these things will be answered when we perhaps come to the 18th chapter. Right? So there's another thing. But thank you very much, Rameshji. Thank you for that fine distinction being drawn on Yogaksema. We'll move on to the next one. I think this is where I think it gets a little more clarified whether Krishna really cancels the Veda, right? So let's see what he says. The next sloka, 46. When you go on same web page, when we go on top and click on next, right? We get to the next one. Yavanartha udapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. So when we look at the Padacheda, scroll down a little bit, Padacheda, Yavan Arthaha Udapane Sarvataha Samplutodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. Padacheda, with a few sandhis, they sound like Yavan Artha Udapane, Artha, that goes missing. Artha Udapane Sarvata Samplutodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. When we look at the Anvaya, we see the Anvayas. Sarvatah Samplutodake Udapane Yavan Artaha Vijanataha Brahmanasya Sarveshu Vedeshu Tavat. Tavat Artaha. We can also consider Artha to repeat. Right? What does it mean? Sounded nice, but we will get to make sense of it when we click on dictionary. Right? On top of that, we have a link called the dictionary. Again, he's addressing Arjuna, right? Hey, Arjuna, Sarvatah Samplutodake. On every side where there is water, filled with water, Sampluta, filled with brimming with water. Sarvataha Samplutodaki. Udapane yavan artaha. Right? In the well, whatever is the use. Okay, whatever is the use of a well in a place that is already filled with water everywhere. That's the primary meaning, right? In a place where there is water everywhere, water everywhere, whatever be the use of a well, right? Vijanataha brahmanasya, for a vijanataha, for a well knowing, for a well knowledgeable brahmana, sarveshu vedeshu tavan artha. In all the Veda, okay, that's the only use. Whatever is the use of a well in a place filled with water, so is the use of Vedas to a person who is a well knowledgeable Brahmana. Right? Now Brahmana need to be understood slightly differently, right? Brahmana need to be understood as Brahma Anati iti Brahmana, one who is in the path of Brahma. In the previous sloka, he mentions that, right? Atmavan Bhava, right? Come towards the Lord, come towards the Paramatma. And one who is in the path of Paramatma, who then becomes the Brahmana. A well understanding, a well discerning Brahmana, for him, the, the advantage or benefits from Vedas are as good as whatever is the benefit of a well in a place that is already filled with water. When we have, so there is a beautiful example, I think in Mahabharata, in the Shanti Parva, Bhishmacharya tells this line to Yudhishthira, Trishito Jahnavi Tire Kupam Vanchati Durmatihi. Like, Trishitaha, one who is thirsty, Jahnavi Tire, by the banks of Ganga. You're on the banks of Ganga and you're thirsty. Kupam Vanchati, you look for a well. That is Durmatihi. That is absolute, loss of, mati, intelligence. Right? So, when you are already a Brahmana, when you are in the path of the Bhagavan, in the truest of the sense, right? Not like where we say, oh, I am already talking to the God directly, I will not listen to him. That's not the way. So a well understanding, a well discerning Brahmana, okay, for him, the use of a Veda is as good as the water in the well by the riverside. People who have the houses by the river, they hardly have a well. They might, for different uses altogether, but a well is not necessary for a house which is by the riverside, right? We pump the water directly from the well most of the time, right? To make a well, there is an additional effort needed. That effort is not at all needed because the river is freely flowing by you. So when you are a well Vijanataha Brahmana, when you are a well knowledgeable Brahmana, you don't need the Veda. Now that is exactly what he is telling, right? In sloka number 42, 43, wherever he appeared to have cancelled the Vedas, Vedas are good when you are caught in the regular day-to-day samsarika life. In the day-to-day samsarika life, Vedas are good. But if you are a well knowledgeable Brahmana, right? If you are a well knowledgeable Brahmana, you don't need it, number one. And very importantly, he brings in the example of Samplutodaki. So Samplutodaki can be understood in different senses, right? A place which is filled with water. See, I don't know how many of you have watched this movie called the 2012, where they predicted the apocalypse, right? The complete end of the world. Whenever we think of end of the world, I think in Kannada there are movies, right? So Bhutayanamaga Ayu, people have watched some of the Kannada movies. But wherever we say end of days, the Pralaya, right? The end of times, we see water coming everywhere. The massive flooding everywhere. So that is everywhere there is water, and then whatever is the use of a well in that place. Now, we need to understand this Samplutodaka from the point of view of this Kurukshetra war. Kurukshetra war, some people say that, by the time this Gitopadesha is happening, the time is already Kali Yuga, which means there is a crossover happening, there is a churn happening of the time, right? So this is already end of days. From that sense, end of a Yuga. This is that Samplutodaka. Okay, at this time, this is the moment of Peril, right? This is the 11th hour, the moment of reckoning. At this time, if you are a Brahmana, that's enough. Vedas are good in the Trigunatmaka world where things are all hunky dory. There is proper Rajoguna being governing a lot of our life, desires, aspirations, the progresses and things like that. But this is not that time. This is a very different time. This is the Samplutodaka time. This is the Chernobyl time, right? This is the inflection point. We can look at it in different ways. So Samplutodaka, when we look at it more and more, that is where it appears like the Vedas are being cancelled, but may not be. But overall, I think the message could be, if you are a Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, if you have cancelled all the confusion, if you have cancelled all the gunatmaka tendencies and things like that, if you can be nitya sattvastha and atmavan bhava, if you can be that, which means you can be a vijanata brahmana, right? If you are part of the Brahma and very well knowledgeable, you don't need the Veda, because the Vedas are as good as what a well can serve a person in a place that has already got enough of water, right? Lot of water. That's the quick understanding. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. We click back on the shloka, link on the shloka, and scroll down a bit. It says, as much use as there is in well with water in flood on every side, so much is there in all Vedas for a Brahmin who has the knowledge. Now again, Brahmin is Brahmin, but Brahmin is basically Brahma Anati, one who courses the path of Brahma. And Brahma is again Brihatvat Brahma, the big thing, right? The big shelter. Brahma has Brihatva and Ma Ashrama, the big shelter, all encompassing one. That can be the Brahma. So the one who's already approaching towards that big spirit, whatever we want to call it, right? Atmanan. For him, Vedas are not necessary in a true, well discerning way. Right? That's the quick interpretation. We can quickly move on to the next shloka. This is the poster boy shloka of Bhagavad-Gita. A lot of people say this is the most popular shloka without doubt, and a lot of people think that this is the one shloka which has the complete message of Bhagavad-Gita. And needless to say, anybody on the speaker panel, wherever you feel the need to jump in, please jump in. This shloka is like this. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangustva karmani. So Padacheda, when you scroll down, Karmani eva adhikaraha te ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahetuhu bhuhu ma te sangaha astu akarmani. There are four negatives or three negatives, right? So Anvaya. Anvaya says, which is the prose order, right? Karmani eva te adhikaraha. Oh Arjuna, this is all referring to Arjuna, right? Hey Arjuna, Karmani eva te adhikaraha ma kadachana phaleshu. Karma phalahetuhu ma bhuhu. Ma te akarmani sangaha cha astu. Right? What does it mean when we go on top and click on the dictionary? Click on the dictionary. Karmani eva te adhikaraha. Oh Arjuna, only in action, your adhikara, your right, your entitlement, right? Ma kadachana phaleshu. Never, not a moment on the fruits, on the entitlement. This is all talking about entitlement. So no entitlement for you ever on the fruits thereupon. Phaleshu, karma phaleshu. Karma phala hetuhu ma bhu. Let not the fruits of your works by your motive. Right? So never think that you are the cause of the fruits of your actions. Right? So let those fruits of actions alone not be your motive. Ma te akarmani sangaha astu. Ma means no. Ma vishada, right? We hear ma, never, neither. Te, your akarmani sangaha astu. In inaction, be association. Right? Now, what does it mean? It's very simple. He says, your right is only in the duty. Karma, right? Karma. By the time we come to the fourth chapter, we will have a better multi-pronged definition of the word karma. For now, we will understand karma to be the swadharma karma, right? The ordained karma. Here, when we talk about karma, it's not just any action, your duty. Your right is only on performing your duty. Your entitlement is only on performing your duty. Never on the fruits of the action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Never on the fruits of the action. Now, does it mean to say that the fruits of the action are not mine? It is for somebody else? No. The fruits of the action are definitely mine. For the action I do, the fruits of the action is definitely mine. The message is that I don't have an adhikara over it. I think there are multiple future references in the Bhagavad-Gita that will explain why. Because we are only one fraction of why a certain result might materialize. Right? The explanation comes much later. Maybe in the 18th chapter has some beautiful explanation to that. But basically, whatever happens, it is not in your hands, but you do your duty. with this duty, we are going ahead to win the war. That's a sankalpa. Yes, you have to win the war. But don't bother. You're bothering about Bhishmacharya getting killed, Dronacharya getting killed. You're already telling that, for whose sake we want to acquire the kingdom, they have come in the front. I don't know whether to kill them or to get killed. Even worse, Arjuna had jumped the line and thought about he has become the Kritagna or Kulagna, right? Kulagna, he's already become the Hantaka of the entire Kula. He's jumped the line, right? He's not staying present. So all Krishna is saying is, you don't have any rights over thinking what's going to happen. He's already jumped the line, right? Stay back, right? You don't have to really go that far. Nothing has started. You haven't even shot a single bow on anyone, no single arrow on anyone, right? It has just started. The war has just started. You don't have any adhikara on any of the karma phala. Or now, not and karma phala hetuhu ma bhuhu. Don't think that you are the cause of all the karma phala. Let that not be the only motive. You have to fight the war because you have to fight the war. That's your duty, right? These people, Arjuna, right from the Vana Parva, they have been wanting to fight. When Yudhishthira, tells that, no, let us complete the Ajnatavasa, let us complete the Vanavasa. Bhima was like, give us the permission. We will go kill them all. Like, we'll go and kill them. And Arjuna was capable. Arjuna was also willing to join hands with Bhima had Yudhishthira just said yes. No, Yudhishthira says, no, 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 that's not possible. Let's complete this. When do you want to get back the kingdom? Like, we will get back tomorrow. Like, when we complete the Vanavasa. And there is a joke also, right? I mean, one of the things, there is something called the Bhagavad-Gita, right? So one of the things that Bhima says at that time to Yudhishthira is that, he starts laughing when Yudhishthira says that, let's complete the term of Vanavasa and Ajnatavasa and then go ask for the righteous portion of the kingdom that we are supposed to get, right? The Bhima starts laughing. He's a great jnani, right? Bhima is one of the most knowledgeable persons. He starts laughing. We don't have confidence of tomorrow. You are confident of 14 years later, right? 13 years later. That's amazing, right? He starts laughing. But nonetheless, right? Yudhishthira's point was very simple. Let's do the duty. Let's not even count the result. We don't know who's going to survive. If things had gone really wrong in that Yaksha Prashna incident, none of them survived, right? Other than Yudhishthira, none of them survived. Right? They all were consumed by that poison. So none of us know what exactly is in store, right? None of us know tomorrow. So do your duty. Then these people have experienced all of these things. Arjuna, Bhima, all of these people have experienced. So they have the right, they have the entitlement to perform the duty, but never on the results of the action. Okay, never shall they be motivated solely by the results of the action, nor shall they ever stay associated to inaction, giving up the duty. Now again, bringing back, Arjuna was telling that better for me to give up all these things and go take asceticism, go beg in in whichever way to survive for my livelihood. It's like that is not your dharma. Like, never shall you have any association with akarma. Mate sangaha astu akarmani. Okay, this is the message. Let's see what shloka. We click on the link shloka and scroll down a bit. We read the Aurobindo interpretation. Thou has a right to action, which is the ordained action. Let's understand it to be the ordained action. Right? Action is the literal meaning for karma. Karma literally means any action. But let's understand it to be the dharmic action, the vihita karma, the ordained action. Thou has right to the ordained action, but only to action, never to its fruits. Let not the fruits of your work be your motive. Neither let there be in you any attachment to inactivity or non-vihita karma, because there is nothing called no action, right? There is activity happening all the time, right? So we'll see that later, but let there be no association for you with no dharmic activity, right? So that's the brief message. And needless to say, anybody in the speaker panel, please jump in wherever you feel appropriateness to jump in. We move on to shloka number 48. Shloka number 48 reads like this: Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Then we get to see a lot of definition of what is yoga, and he also gave one definition from my understanding, right? Upaya, the way out. Krishna is giving one definition of yoga. Let's see the Padacheda first. Roll down a little bit. Yogastaha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhi asiddhyoho samah bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Right? What does the Anvaya sound like? The prose order. He Dhananjaya, Sangam Tyaktva, Siddhi Asiddhyoho Samaha Bhutva, Yogastha Karmani Kuru, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. What does it mean? You need to go on top, scroll top, and click on the dictionary. Right? When you click on the word dictionary, He Dhananjaya, oh winner of riches, which is Arjuna, right? And one who wins battles, one who wins wars, will win the spoils of the war, makes him rich, right? So Dhanan Jayati, basically, Shatrum Jayati, like when he wins over his enemies, he obviously wins the spoils of the war. Sangam Tyaktva. What Sangam Tyaktva? He mentioned what Sangam, right? The previous shloka, Akarmani na Sangaha astu. So Akarmani Sangam Tyaktva, like Akarma is non-dharmic action. Basically, give up your attachment to anything that you thought of doing which is not your Swadharma. And again, coming back, right? So, Sangam Tyaktva. Okay, Akarmani Sangam Tyaktva, Vihita Karmani Sangam Tyaktva, or Asangam Tyaktva. Siddhi Asiddhyoho. Like, in Siddhi and in Asiddhi, in both of these, which is the extremities, right? In Siddhi is success and failure. In Siddhi is success and Asiddhi is failure. Between Siddhi and Asiddhi, Samaha Bhutva, being equanimous. Like, so be completely sorted, whether it's Siddhi or Asiddhi. I think he makes a very similar statement when he explains the Swadharma part, right? He says, with little while ago, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva. I think shloka number 38, I think. Little while ago, he says, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva, like, being equanimous in the extreme situation. Now he says, in success and failure, being equal. Don't take it because you don't have any entitlement over the result. Continue doing the work, right? Continue doing the work, what you're supposed to do. Siddha Siddhyoho Samaha Bhutva, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Kuru. Yogastha means Yoge Sthitaha. Seated in the yoga, Karmani Kuru. Do your Vihita Karma. Do your duty, right? Follow your actions. Seated in yoga. What is yoga? Because he says now seated in yoga, right? Yoge Sthitaha iti Yogastha. Seated in yoga, perform your duties. What is yoga? Samatvam yoga uchyati. Yoga is samatva. Being equanimous is yoga. Okay, that itself is yoga. Right? He explains. He says, be in yoga. And he also explains what is yoga, very briefly. I think some of us might have read some other definitions of yoga. They all become valid. We will see how, slowly, when we take more and more, I think they all make sense. Right? So let's see what shloka, the interpretation from Sri Aurobindo says. When you click on the link on the shloka and scroll down, fixed in yoga, do your actions. Having abandoned attachments, having become equal in failure and success, for it is equality that is meant to be yoga. I won't say by yoga, it is meant to be yoga. Or equanimity, not even equality, equanimity, offering the same composure. And I think couple of nuanced additions I would add to this translation is fixed in yoga, staying in yoga, do your ordained actions. I would stress on ordained actions for karma, right? Having abandoned attachment to inordained actions, akarma, because the previous shloka he says, akarmani sangha ma astu, right? That is the sangha. So giving up sangha to inordained action, which is what Arjuna was thinking, that I will take to begging. Gurun ahatva, I think shloka number 5. Gurun ahatva hi mahabhavan shreyah bhoktum bhaikshyamapi loke. It's better for me to beg, I think, than killing these elders. Right? That's the thing that comes. So that's the quick interpretation. Having become equal, or treating both failure and success equal. Which is treating my mental composure. I can't lose my resolve. Right? Nobody should lose the resolve, and that is the sole purpose of this buddhi yukta karma. Because buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasisi. That's the statement he made. If you stay in buddhi, if you stay resolute, you will overcome the karma bandha. Karma bandha will come, the karma imprints will come only when we have given up, compromised on the buddhi yukta. And buddhi yukta is only one path. Now avoid everything that will snatch the buddhi away from being affixed, fixated, from being resolute in one path. So equanimity to the failure and success, that shouldn't affect your resolve of being in the action, right? In your duty. Stay committed to the duty. For equanimity of extremities itself is yoga. That's the first definition of yoga that we get to see from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in this scripture. We will move on now to shloka number 49. Shloka number 49 reads, Durena yavaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanam anvichha kripana phalahetavaha. The Padacheda reads like this. Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yogat he dhananjaya buddhau sharanam anvichha kripanaha phalahetavaha. Okay, the Anvaya, the prose order sounds like this. Hey Dhananjaya, Buddhi Yogat Karma Durena Avaram. Buddhi Yogat Karma Durena hi Avaram. Durena Avaram hi. Buddhau Sharanam Anvichyahi. Phalahetavaha Kripanaha. I think there is a lot of message in this shloka. Let's see one by one what it means. Hey Dhananjaya. Again the same thing, right? Dhanam Jayati, the winner of enemies. When you win over the enemies, you acquire the wealth by the spoils of the war. So, Dhananjaya, oh Arjuna, Buddhi Yoga, from Buddhi Yoga, Karma Durena Havaram, action from far is inferior, by far, by a great margin, it's very inferior, right? Inferior, or far inferior, okay? Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha, in Buddhi, get Sharanagati, seek Sharanagati, or surrender to Buddhi. He Phalahetavaha Kripanaha. Indeed, for verily, Phalahetavaha, people who count the results of the actions, right? Phalahetavaha, that I am the cause, I need to get this result out. So people who keep counting the fruits of the action, they are Kripanaha. They are the poor and the rich souls. Kripanaha can be miserly, Kripanaha can be cowardly, Kripanaha can be poor and the rich souls. We will see. Because sometime back, Arjuna makes that point, right? I think shloka number 7. He makes this line, Karpanya dosho apahata svabhavaha. Karpanya dosha is coming from the Kripanatva. The same behavior is leading to Karpanya dosha. Right? Karpanya, Kripanatva are linked. Krishna perhaps is answering back to Arjuna. What you think is Kripanatva is not the real Kripanatva. This is Kripanatva, right? He's giving it back to Arjuna. You will see. Hey Dhananjaya, Buddhi Yoga. Okay, from Buddhi Yoga, which is Buddhi Yoga means Buddhi Yukta Karma Yoga. Buddhi Yoga by natural means is that it is Karma Yoga naturally. I think we saw that when we looked into the chapter 15, right? Yatanto Yoginas Chayanam. The minute we say yoga, by default it has to be the Karma Yoga. So it's the Buddhi Yukta Karma Yoga, right? So Buddhi Yoga Karma, which is Sakama Karma, right? Or ordained also, but it could be Sakama Karma. No, non-Buddhi Yukta Yoga. It's basically Sakama Karma. Karma, Durena hi Avaram. By far only it's very inferior. Avaram. Varam is great. Avaram means negative, right? So inferior. Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha. Stay, surrender to the Buddhi. Because Buddhi is higher than Manas, right? We spoke about the Antakaranas. Buddhi comes on top of the Manas. So surrender to the Buddhi, right? Phalahetavaha Kripanahahi. For the one who keep counting results are Kripanaha, are the cowards. Now, beautifully, right? What Arjuna thought to be the Kripanatva, which is he's thinking by winning over Bhishma, Drona, who have a soft corner for this guy, and then winning the kingdom, that is a Karpanya dosha. Oh, that is a very bad thing. I'll be winning the kingdom, I'll be winning the war by walking over the bodies of my gurus who would have meekly surrendered. So few fallacies in the thought process of Arjuna, right? A, he has thought that Drona and Bhishma would meekly surrender to him, which is not the case. While they desire for, every morning they would do that prayer, right? Jayos Panduputranam, as much as they prayed for it, they wouldn't meekly surrender. They know what to do for their duty. They will not have a meek surrender. Otherwise, they will not face Abhimanyu in that fashion, right? So they could face him. and they actually harmed him, right? So he's thinking wrong, that he's thinking they will be giving up meekly in front of him. More importantly, he's counting the results already, right? He's already thinking he's winning the war with them, right? Krishna is telling that is not kripanatva. Kripanatva is you're counting the results. Phalahetavaha hi kripanaha. Okay, counting the result itself is kripanatva. I mean, we do see, right, some of the best business entities, business houses also, they don't keep counting the cash every transaction. They leave it. You count at the end of the day, that's fine to do the proper record keeping and things like that, right? So you can't keep counting all. It's a miserly behavior, cowardly behavior, cheap, poor, wretched souls, these kind of things. That's kripanatva. And then he says, Buddhi Yukta Yoga is by far superior to karma, mere karma. That's the core point. So offer yourself to Buddhi. Stay in the Buddhi Yukta, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, Samadhi, no state. Like no, go for the thing that you have set out to do, which is get up and fight. The implied message in all the lines is Tyaktvo Tishta Parantapa. Get up and fight, O Arjuna. Right? So that's the message that comes. Let's see what Aurobindo translation says. It says works are far inferior to yoga of the intelligence, which is sakama karma, is inferior to, by far inferior to the buddhi yukta yoga. O Dhananjaya, desire rather refuge in the intelligence. Okay, you anvicha, desire, like seek, surrender into the intelligence, right? Buddhi yukta, be buddhi yukta. Poor and rich souls, or the cowardly souls, or the miserly people, kripanaha, they are the one who make the fruit of their work as the object of their thoughts, phalahetavaha, and the activities, right? So that's the message. I think beautiful, right? We start seeing Krishna rebutting point by point of Arjuna, right? Whatever Arjuna has spoken so far, if we were to make notes of every point, we will see the rebuttal for every point coming from Krishna. That's how beautiful the message is. Right? So let's go on now. We'll go to shloka number 50. And shloka number 50 reads like this. And again, needless to say, anybody wants to jump in, please jump in. Shloka number 50 is Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrute tasmat yogaya yujyasva yoga karma sukaushalam. The padacheda is Buddhi yukta jahati iha ubhe sukrute dushkrute tasmat yogaya yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. I think there is another definition of yoga coming here. 2 shlokas ago he gave one definition. Now he says another definition of yoga. What is yoga? Not that that is the only definition or this is the only definition. They all need to be looked into in totality. So let's see what Anvaya sounds like. Anvaya, the prose order. Buddhi yuktaha sukrute dushkrute ubhe iha jahati tasmat yogaya yujyasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. What does it mean? Buddhi yuktaha, when you click on the dictionary, right? One who is resolute in his in his action, one who is completely buddhi yukta, yogi, buddhi yukta, one who is completely determined, discriminatory in his action, right? What is the right thing? Always doing what is right, never getting swayed away for temptations, distractions and things like that. Buddhi yukta, one who is completely buddhi yukta yogi, sukrute dushkrute, in both good deeds and the bad deeds, ubheyapi, in both of them, iha, here, and also ihaloka is the mortal world, right? In this mortal planet, jahati, gets cast away, from all the. So iha here can also be ihaloka, samsarika loka. Samsarika loka naturally has karma bandha. Karma bandha is associated with papa. So all of these things will be cast away. So you will be freed from all of this. Jahati, you will kill all of them. Okay. Tasmat, therefore, yoga yujyasva. For the sake of yoga, you please stay associated. You please engage yourself for the sake of yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga in work is kaushala. Kaushala is the skill, right? Now, kushalatva. Kushalatva is skill, but also it's something that is very well neatly accomplished, right? Kushalatva, not just skill. Kushalatva, kaushala is also something that is very, very good. Now, this yoga karmasu kaushalam again can be looked at in different ways, right? Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga, whatever yoga we achieve, it is good only when it is put in motion, right? Only karmasu eva yoga kaushalam. Yoga is good only in action. Yoga cannot be a thought process alone, right? It has to be put in motion. That is one. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. In a yoga kind of a karma is better, is good for us. Kaushala. Kushalatva. Our kushalatva is only in yoga karma. In karma, which is nishkama karma, like without any sangarahita karma. That itself is kushalatva. Okay, kaushala for all of us. Yoga karma kaushala. Okay, so there are different ways in which we can look at this. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. When we come down on the shloka link, it says, one whose intelligence has attained to unity casts away from him, even here in this world of dualities, both good doing and the evil doing. Therefore, strive to be in the yoga. Yoga is the skill in works. Now again, right, little complicated translation. To keep it very, very simple, the one who is buddhi yukta, one who goes in a resolute way, whatever happens, Sukrita or Dushkrita, never be bothered so long as you are doing your karma, ordained work, right? He doesn't really bother about whether it's right or wrong, whether it's Sukrita or Dushkrita. He has overcome both. Ubhe iha jahati. Both of these Sukrita, Dushkrita, both are overcome now. Jahati. Tasmat yoga yujjasva. Then please stay fixated for the sake of yoga. Because earlier also, 3 slokas ago, he said, Yogastaha kuru karmani, right? He again says the same thing. Therefore, you be yogastha. Therefore, yogaya yujjasva. Get engaged for the sake of yoga. And yoga, karmasu kaushalam. Yoga karma itself is good. And yoga is good in action. Multiple ways in which we can do it. Any interpretations, any thoughts? Please jump in.
I think this yoga karma su kaushalam can also be interpreted as, I don't know, means when you are doing any work with some skills, okay, that itself can be termed as yoga. So basically, when you are exhibiting your intelligence in doing your karma, that itself can be interpreted as yoga. I think
absolutely.
that also may
That's
be
the third. I forgot to mention that. So, kaushalam karmasu yoga. We can see that a well-skilled work itself is yoga.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful. That's the third one. Yeah. Sorry, I missed to mention that. Yeah. So there are 3 ways in which we can look at it. Yoga. So when we look at kaushala, it's only for skill, but kaushala can also be well-being. Kaushala can be looked at in different ways, right? So what is good, because he's been asking what is Shreyakara for me, he's actually mentioning, okay, karma, no, yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is good only when in action. Second thing is yoga karma itself is kaushala, okay, and then karma kaushalam itself is yoga. We can understand it in 3 different ways. Okay, we will move on now to, I think in the meanwhile we can also open the hand raising option and let people come in. In the next 10 minutes, we will wrap up for the day, and we can somehow have some popcorn discussions around any of the shlokas that we have seen. We have been seeing from shloka number 45 today. So let's look at this. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmukta padam gacchantyanāmayam. The Padacheda reads as Karmajam buddhi yuktaha hi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchanti anamayam. Anvayam. Hi buddhi yuktaha manishinaha karmajam phalam tyaktva janma bandha vinirmuktaha anamayam padam gacchanti. Anamayam is a very key word for those of us who are reading the Manusmriti. Anamaya is the word being used for asking the well-being of a Kshatriya. Anamaya way. So, Anamaya is like Kaushal ho up. For a Vaishya, we say, we ask Kaushal hai up, are you Kaushal? So, similarly for a Kshatriya, we ask Anamaya. So, we will see what the meaning is. He, indeed, verily, for Buddhi yukta, people who have buddhi yukta, right? People who are resolute in their action with the buddhi. Manishinaha karmajam phalam tyaktva. Okay, of the say buddhi yukta manishinaha, the sages. Again, the people who have become buddhi yukta almost become saintly, right? Buddhi yukta manishinaha karmajam phalam tyaktva. Karmajam is karmat jayate, right? So born out of karma. The phala which are born out of karma, tyaktva, having given up, having renounced the fruits of the action, janma bandha vinirmuktaha. The bondage of janma. Well, see, the minute we are born, there is a bandhana, right? There is a karma bandha. They will be vinirmuktaha, visheshatah nirmuktaha, like they will be freed from the bondage, right? Very in a very very special way. Visheshatah vi nirmuktaha anamayam padam gachanti. Anamayam is beyond misery. Anamayam, anamayam padam gachanti, the position, the status they reach, right? So again, the importance of why you have to be buddhi yukta, right? It's all about buddhi yukta. Stay with one single buddhi. Swadharma. He spoke 10 shlokas of Swadharma. He spoke 20 shlokas of getting back to Prajna. Now these 14 shlokas from shloka number 41, it's all about buddhi yukta, being stitadhi, being stira buddhi, being samadhi, right? It's all about the constancy of the buddhi, right? So what does the Aurobind interpretation say? The sages, which is like a yogi, right? Sages who have united their reason and will with the divine, renounce the fruit which action yields, okay, born out of the action, fruits that are born out of the action, and liberated from the bondage of birth, they reach the status beyond misery. Right? In simple sense, the Buddhi Yukta Manisha, sages, the Buddhi Yukta yogis, they give up all the fruits born out of karma. They don't give up as an, if I win the lottery, doesn't mean to say that it should go to the charity. Just that I don't hold an entitlement over the lottery, not that, I constantly sit over it, right? It's there. I've perhaps bought a lottery, it's lying there. If I win, I mean, the money comes, it will definitely hit my locker, it will definitely hit my bank account. But I have given up the attachment to it. When we say karmajam phalam tyaktva, I give up the entitlement over the fruits of the action. There is no hetutva, like I give up that I am the cause. I have this entitlement. I have to get this. That is something that we need to constantly see. When we say sangam tyaktva, that's exactly what we need to see. Janma bandha vinirmuktaha. When they don't go behind these, actions born out of fruits born out of action, they become freed from the janma bandha and anamayam padam gachanti. They reach a position which is well beyond miseries, right? Which is again the constant question that is being addressed by Krishna while sticking to his narrative, which is a very well threaded message. Is what is Shreyaskara for Arjuna? That's what he's asking. So for you as a Kshatriya, that this word Anamaya is very, very important. Like I said earlier, for a Kshatriya in those Sanatana society, that's how you address Anamaya. So are you all right? When we say are you freed from all miseries, things like that, right? So this is Shreyaskara for a Kshatriya. Right? So let's move on. We go to shloka number 52. Yada te moha kalilam buddhirvyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When we look at the Padacheda, yada te moha kalilam buddhihi vyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. So sandhi is here. Let's see the Anvaya. Yada te buddhihi moha kalilam vyatitarishyati tada shrutasya cha shrotavyasya cha nirvedam gantasi. What does it mean? We go on top and look at the dictionary. Yada, as and when, jaise, like yadi, yada, as and when, te buddhihi, your buddhi, moha kalilam vyatitarishyati. Okay, vyatitarishyati is crosses, like it swims over the whirl of delusion, the what do you call that? Moha kalilam, the whirlpool of delusion, right? When it crosses swims over the whirlpool of delusion, tada shrutasya shrotavyasya cha. Whatever has been heard, shrutasya Shrotavyasa, whatever has to be heard later. Cha. Nirvedam Gantasi. The indifference of this shall be overcome. You shall attain that. You will overcome the indifference. Whatever has been heard so far, whatever has to be heard, whatever has to be heard tomorrow, we are okay. We are indifferent to that, right? The minute our buddhi, uh, you know, helps me to cross over the delusion, the whirlpool of delusion, then, which means by staying buddhi yukta, okay, staying in this buddhi, through this buddhi, you will overcome the whirlpool of delusion, right? This is again, the whirlpool is very apt, right? Because Arjuna said, I think somewhere around shloka number 28, 29, Bhramati vacha me manaha, my head is spinning. Spinning because he's caught in this delusion, right? So, if you apply your buddhi, through this buddhi, if you are buddhi yukta, you will certainly overcome this delusion. Okay, moha, no moha kalila tarishyati. Like, moha kalilam yati tarishyati. Okay, tada shutasya cha, whatever has been heard in terms of outcome, in terms of who's going to come, who's going to stand in front. Because see, Bhishma Drona Pramukatahi is something that he has heard, and tomorrow they might not be there, right? So whatever has to be heard, whatever has been heard, you will be all right. You will be indifferent to whatever is the result, and that is about samatva, right? Siddhi asidhyo samatva, sukha dukkhe same kritva. Like, getting that samatva. So let's see what shloka Aurobindo interpretation says for this. The Aurobindo interpretation reads as, when your intelligence shall cross beyond the world of delusion, then shall you become indifferent to scripture heard or that which you have to yet to hear. So Shruti, right? Shruti is basically literally is what is heard, Shrutasya, and Shruti is also Veda. And that is where in this section we also saw the reference to the Veda. According to the Vedic injuncture, if you think that Naraka is the only permanent settlement for you with whatever you're doing, you stay indifferent to that. You don't get swayed away by it because that is not the true meaning of the Veda. We can look at it that way also. That's where I think scripture is also being added in this website. But we can do away with the scripture or the Veda part of the Shruti here, because Shruti can be literally whatever has been heard, Shrutabhyasya, whatever is to be heard. We can look at it that way. But again, right, the contemplations will be fun, will be multifold when we look at all possibilities and look at one possibility at a time and then look at our own contemplation. Right? So Shruti can also mean the Veda. That's where the scripture comes in this website. But I would, for a simplistic sense, I would leave that scriptural reference being given here. We move on now to shloka number 53. I think this brings us to the last of the messages in this Bhagavad-Gita. When I say in this Bhagavad-Gita, between one Bhagavan Uvacha and another Bhagavan Uvacha, it's one full message being delivered. Right? Whatever has to be learned by the true seeker, the entire message is given by Bhagavan. Right? We will quickly do a recap. So shloka number 53, because after this comes to Arjuna Uvacha, right? So he's given it. Right? The message is given now. Then Arjuna has another question. Okay, which means one message from Bhagavan is over. Right? So he has already told him, get up and fight. So in this shloka we get to hear that, right? Shruti Vipratipannate. This is shloka number 53. If you click on next on the web link. Shruti Vipratipannate yada sthasyati nischala samadha vachala buddhi tada yogamavapsyasi. The Padacheda, scroll down. Shruti Vipratipannate yada sthasyati nischala samadhau achala buddhi. Samadha vachala buddhi. That's a sandhi. Samadha vachala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. What does it sound in a prose order? The Anvaya reads as Shruti Vipratipannate. Shruti Vipratipanna te buddhi yada samadhau nischala achala sthasyati tada yogam avapsyasi. Now he's telling how to attain yoga, right? Because he's telling do action being in yoga, and he said yoga is the good thing to do, yoga is the right thing to do, and be a yogi. Now, how do you become a yogi? He's mentioning that here. Let's see what this Anvaya means. You go on top and click on the dictionary. Shruti Vipratipanna, the one that is currently bewildered by whatever has been told in the Vedas, by the scriptures, right? Shruti Vipratipanna. Your mind is currently worried about what has been spoken in the Shrutis, in the Vedas, because you did mention about the fear, Lupta Pindo, the Kriya, right? I mean, if all the Udaka Kriya, Pinda Kriya will be stopped, then Narake Niyasamvasa, we will be relegated to Naraka, right? So that's your fear. This Shruti Vipratipanna, this bewildered by the Shruti, your buddhi, your intellect, yada samadhau, just as in when, in the state of samadhi, nischala, unmoving, achala, stable, sthasyati, gets established. Tada, thereafter, yoga avapsyasi, you will attain yoga, which is basically samatvam. So, overcome the whirl of delusion. That is what was spoken in the previous one. And this whirl of delusion is where you had this fear. Oh, look, the pindodaka kriyaha, narakeniyatam vakaha, all of that. The minute your buddhi can overcome these things, and in the state of samadhi, 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 you can look at it. Samadhi is basically stira buddhi, right? Samadhav, in the state of samadhi, in the state of stira buddhitva, unmoving, stable, when it becomes stable and unmoving, which is basically devoid of distractions, okay, it can stay put in its own course, right? Tada yogam avapsiti, then is when you attain yoga, which means this is the state of yoga. Yogastaha swakarma kuru, swadharma karma kuru. Like that's the message. Stay in the state of yoga and perform your duties, right? And for that you have to be buddhi yukta. There is no other way but to be buddhi yukta. So the chief message from sloka number 11 to sloka number 53. Okay, this is where one Bhagavad-Gita, one round of Bhagavad-Gita over, right? And every round of Bhagavad-Gita is a full round, it's a full Gita message. The message is very, very simple. Get back to your prajna, for which you need to stop crying. Adopt your swadharma. There is nothing better than swadharma for anyone. And stay buddhi yukta, right? To stay buddhi yukta, you have to overcome all distractions, all confusions. Stay in one focused point. Don't get bothered about even the Vedas. If Krishna has appeared so strong to even almost ostensibly cancel the Vedas, I mean, he's not cancelled, we know that, right? But even if it sounds close to being cancelling the Vedas, even to that level, stay resolute. Don't get your buddhi, get distracted into unnecessary things. I think that brings us to the closure. One section.